Hello everyone, welcome back. Tonight, back onto that flipper control. It's been chaotic trying to wrap stuff up before the holidays. Where I'm at in the United States, we are coming up on Christmas, which is wonderful. I will be taking some time off. Not planning on skipping my stream next week though, so we'll see. Something may come up. It's a Christmas holiday. I'm on vacation all week. I probably want to go, but who knows? Maybe I decide I want a week off. We'll see how it lands. So maybe a stream next week, assuming I'm enjoying coding. I've been doing a lot of coding recently. So, um, tonight, going back to the material design flipper control. Last week, got far enough to be confused and had a good think on it and have some approaches that I want to at least try. We'll see how far we get. I'm gonna try to not run too late tonight. I've got a video that's going to be going live on YouTube later, probably two videos actually on the Git Kraken CLI. So that doesn't make sense to you. And when I say CLI, just to be clear, I'm not talking about this thing down here at the bottom, little embedded terminal. I'm talking about something cooler. One sec. Show it to you. Oh, I can show you part of it. I can show you the wonderful marketing page for it, and it is amazing and wonderful. So, quick synopsis. This is if you are at home inside of a terminal doing all of your Git stuff, and you would like to augment that with some of the more Git Kraken-y goodness, being able to group and manage repositories at a workspace level type situation, be able to have some sort of like focus view for issues, PRs, that kind of thing. This is a tool for you. So, video forthcoming, should be live in the next 24 hours. It's currently December 20th, 2023. So if you're watching a recording of this after that point, go check out the YouTube. It's there. Should be out very, very soon. Okay, so we are going to take our flipper control. Speaking of my beloved Git Kraken, step one. There's been a number of things that have gone through. Specifically, Dependabot updated some stuff. NuGet automatically updated some icon stuff. Great, we like icons. We're going to just bring our flipper take two branch, rebase on master, push, and yeah, force push. And yes, do it. Okay, so where we last landed on this lovely flipper control is we had run into a situation where we'll back up. We'll just catch everyone up real quick. So flipper control, simple flipper control. In material design, they have a concept of like a card. Think of it as like a panel, or some people call it maybe a border or similar, right? It's a container that holds stuff. Sometimes has elevation set on it. We do elevation with stable the breakpoint for the moment. We do elevation with the drop shadow effect in WPF. But the idea here is you click it and it flips. I know, fascinating. That is the name. But the interesting part is this case right here. See, these ones are somewhat easier because the controls aren't changing size. And you'll note here the size of this one looks like or the font on this looks garbage, right? Most people report blurry font. That sucks. The other big limiting factor with the current flipper control doesn't respond to theme changes. That sucks. So we like this better, right? One of these sets of text is much more readable than the other. You can guess which one. So we're aiming for something more like the right, but with the animation that looks more like the left. So that's what we're going for. So to get the animation, we are leveraging the 3D APIs inside of WPF. They're somewhat little known APIs that don't get to see a lot of use, because most of the time, if somebody's doing 3D stuff, they're probably building a game often. And so if you're building a game, you are probably pulling in some sort of game engine because you probably want some sort of like physics and the other stuff that the game engines give you. Yes, WPF can render the 3D stuff for you, but it's kind of like, why would you pick that when you could take something that's actually built for building games? Can you build simple games in WPF? Yeah, I've built little card games and whatnot with it. It's great, works fine. But if you get to something complicated where you're like doing 3D object stuff, you might want something with like collision detection and whatnot built in. That might be a thing. So, yeah. So APIs don't see much use, But you can do some cool stuff like make things flip. Now, the limiting factor here and the bane of the existence of why this thing renders like crap is this visual brush right. Because when you do a visual brush in WPF, it basically snapshots a UI element and gives you a picture that you can then go and drop on things. I meant to show off Snoop the other day because Snoop does this as well. So normally I show everybody grabbing the crosshairs next to the binoculars. There's a second set of crosshairs because that's not confusing at all next to this magnifying glass, right? If you drag that on, you'll note you get this visualization of it. And then more importantly, you can hit this 3D mode, right? And then you can start to do this maneuver. This is one of those features of WPF that I feel like most people don't realize exists. And you can drag this slider here to kind of expand it out. This is one of those things that is worth knowing about because sometimes being able to visualize the layers is incredibly powerful. Now, you'll note something, some of this, and you can change the background to make things either stand out more or less depending on what you're doing. You'll note this thing here looks a little weird because it's like, hang on, we don't have big black things sitting over the top of my thing. We kind of do. I probably need to dig into it a little more, but I would suspect drawer host and dialog host from the main window are probably where these things are coming from because both of those things have overlays that sit there. But you can make it dance, right? But this is the type of stuff that you can do with WPF's 3D things. That's great, right? Like this is kind of what we're going for here. But the problem that we run into here is while going through and doing this, we kind of need to know how big this is. Because once you do this, you actually have to like measure the size of elements. And the problem that we ran into is how do you know how big the other side of the flipper is until you've actually rendered it? Now, here is I have some working theories of things that I want to just go play with and try, but think I think we can do this with render transfer. I think. Not the animation, but I think we can use them and abuse them in order to get a reasonable rendering of the control and capture the visual brush. That's the game plan. So, stand by one moment while I figure out which end is up and where my terminal is, because I have lost it. There's my happy terminal. Okay, happy terminal. CD temp, make dir WPF render test. We're gonna do this. CD. Yeah, that'll work. .NET new. That's not what I want. That's what I want. Sudo make me a WPF app. Hey, the base Taka. Welcome. Hello, hello. We're gonna play around with the WPF visual brush. That's what we're going to do. So rather than fight with it inside of all of this 3D stuff, I'm just gonna do it inside of a brand new app real quick, just so that we can have something simple, no extra weirdness going on, none of that things. We don't need here. We're gonna do some stuff real quick. We don't need unit tests. We aren't unit testing. We're gonna literally just render stuff straight up, and we're probably gonna even delete the view model. Who needs a view model? Okay. Great. So what I would like to do is I would like to bring in. Let's just do. I think rather than this stack panel here, we're gonna switch this out for a grid. Grid, great. Yeah, I don't like any of that. That all goes away. Don't like any of that. That all goes away. Why do I have an empty image control in my template? That seems... Should fix that. I think I did fix it. I think I fixed it and then just never pushed it. Also dumb. So we're going to do a couple columns, and we're just going to do... you're close, Copilot. You're close. You're close. You got 50%. Okay, so left side, we're going to do something like border X name target control. Actually, you know what? Let's not do a border. Let's do a card. Or actually, I usually call it MDIX, don't I? What we normally do. Boom. Okay, so That just added the XML namespace somewhere. Boom. So we will take a card. Let's inside of the card. Let's do a button. Content. Capture me. Wahahaha. Okay. I've had a little too much caffeine. I think that's probably the fundamental flaw here. Let's do a margin of 20. I just want to put some space around these things so that we can kind of see them line up. Let's see. Horizontal alignment center. Vertical alignment center. Because I can't type doesn't mean it's wrong. Okay. And then we're going to do something over on the right side. We're going to do something like a... let's just put another... Actually, you know what? Let's do this. We'll just do some row definitions here. Grid, row definitions. Come on, Copilot. What am I thinking of? Ha! See, I'm still the developer. Copilot cannot read my mind yet. There we go. Okay, so row definitions. Getting close, but it's not going to read my mind yet. Okay, so we're going to have a button. Visual brush. And it's not even going to have a command. Skip that. Grid, row 1. Grid, column 1. Okay, and then we need something to put a background on for the visual brush. Because when you get a brush, the brush is worthless unless it's applied to something. And this is the important thing to note. Because in WPF, brushes are things that you paint with. In this case, this just happens to be like a brush that's like one of those temporary tattoos that you're going to just roll on and kind of like wallpaper the thing with. So let's do a border, and we'll just set like the background of it. Name target element, and this really shouldn't be target. This should be like source. Source element, boom. Target element, grid, column 1, grid row 0. I know it's the default, but whatever. Okay, and then vertical alignment center, horizontal alignment center, good. And then, tell you about my markup for. Because I haven't compiled yet. It's because I haven't compiled. Okay. We got this. Great. We've got this thing here. And we're going to hopefully take a picture of this and put it here. That's game plan. That's game plan. Okay. Click handler. Let's see. Visual brush. Brush gets new. Source element. And then we're going to do... Well, that's interesting. Huh. Noting that the brush has a view box. Okay, Copilot, you're impressing me. What else do I want to do next? Absolute, okay. You're getting close. I mean, I guess. Okay, now you've just lost your mind. Copilot, we got to put this brush somewhere. If we don't put it somewhere, it's not going to be useful to anybody. Come on, Copilot, pay attention. Pay attention. Let's see. So for Copilot, I couldn't remember the name of the element. I'm sure you did. Let's see. So we're going to do background, gets brush, boom. Okay. So, because here's what we want to test. We want to see what happens when we apply transforms to this source element. What does that do to our brush, and how can we abuse that to get the brush to do what we want? Okay. That did absolutely nothing. Now, I have a strange suspicion. Width gets source element actual width, and target element gets actual height. I have a strange suspicion that's going to be a requirement here. Because setting the background with a brush doesn't actually change the size of an element. It just says, hey, as the element gets bigger or smaller, do that. That did nothing. Okay, come here. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's just inspect it. Okay, well, there it is. Target element. And does it have a background brush set? It does have a visual brush, but the visual brush appears to be broken. Okay, so what is going on here? What's different about what we did here? Not a lot. Not a lot, because it's the framework element, visual brush, set caching. Uh, doo -doo -doo. Did set the size of this element because he is not. If we look at his actual height, actual width, he has a size to go along with him, which is nice. It looks like it's roughly in line with this. 132, 204 and a bit. 132, 204 and a little bit. That sounds about right. Clicking multiple times. Okay. So, let's do the obvious thing. Ask the Googles. WPF brush. I remember there's something weird about this. Actually, before we get too carried away, the most logical explanation is delete everything Copilot suggested. No offense, Copilot. It's just that I don't trust you. See, and Copilot, that's why I don't trust you. Because see that? It worked. Now, I also see something weird. Because are those the same size? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? It looks physically smaller. Yeah, I think this is actually smaller. 132, 204. 132, 204. Nah. There's got to be a padding or a margin or something. Something mustn't fucking with this. Not that. Something seems a little off. Because the rendering size of this is just a little bit off. And you can already see by doing the visual brush, box on the right definitely looks slightly smaller. Yeah, agreed. Completely agreed. Like it's the I'll say this: the border whose background brush is being set is reporting the same size. But yeah, those are not the same size. I wonder. Source element does have a margin set on it. Let's do that real quick. I wonder if there's something weird going on here where the margin isn't being accounted for. Nope, that ain't it. Okay, let's take a look here. What do we got going on? Auto layout content. So that's the visual. Animate properties is seen, relative transform. This is what I was kind of hoping to abuse here. The transform that is applied to the brush using relative coordinates. I don't think there'd be anything weird set on the brush, but we can investigate the brush really quick and take a look. Let's go a little spelunking and see why might this guy have a different. So it acknowledges the brush. Great. Hey, I want into the brush. How do I don't want it delve. Thank you. Okay, so alignment center. These are all attached properties that are just being inherited in. So none of those should be doing anything. Is there a option in these things that filters? Oh. Oh, this is cool. I've never known you could do your own filters. That's okay then. We're gonna come back and play with that because I've got quite a few that I would like to do. Did not realize I could edit these. Oh, fun. Because of how it's set up, you can't click edit filters from once you've selected. You got to click off and back on to get to edit filters. Interesting. But if you want to see how to do filtering inside of Snoop, there's now an easy way of doing that. Okay, continuing on. I was hoping to find something that just filtered, because the filters in Snoop are pulling things in, and I kind of wanted something that would eliminate attached properties. So some of these I might be interested in. Render options. These are the ones that the material design library is specifying. Edge mode. What that means. Okay. Actually. No. Okay. Looking for something. Ah. Stretch. Why? Okay. Riddle me this. Why would setting stretch to fill make it smaller than setting stretch to none? Something doesn't jive. Okay, WPF visual brush stretch. I want to just I want to understand such its stretch property. Okay. Explain to me is scaled to fit the tile because the contents height and width are scaled independently. Might not be preserved. That's fine. Interesting. I feel like I always want none. You see, this is the other fun thing that you can do with visual brushes. You'll note as this thing changes, thing updates. Click. Okay. So interesting. So short version is if we come in here and we change our stretch to none, that will go a long way to making me happy. Okay, so over here, visual brush. Okay, where I kind of thought we were going to start rather than where we were going to have to work our way into, but you know what? Close enough. Close enough. Okay, so that gets us to there. Both of you have the same sizes. Everyone's happy. Wonderful. Okay. Oh, that's funny. When it's even the visual brush is even picking up the adorner that Snoop puts on it because this red border is an adorner that Snoop adds to the elements to show you which item you have selected, and the visual brush is even picking that up. That's so cool. So cool. Okay, so that gets me to there. That gets me to there. Now the question is, what can I do to the source element and still have the visual brush play nice? So for example, can I get away with doing MDIX card render transform and do something like a rotate transform? Angle of, I don't know, 90 degrees. Does that... Okay, so so it rotated the control. This one obviously didn't know to rotate, so that one messed it up. And if I do this with render transform origin and we say rotate about the center rather than. So if you don't set the render transform origin, your transforms are applied from 0, 0. Where if you set the transform origin, this is a point between 0 and 1. So for people who remember their unit circle from mathy classes. So 0 0.5, 0 0.5 means halfway across on X, halfway across on Y. There we get our way in. Now we're applying a 90-degree rotation, starting at the middle of our control rather than up in the corner and swinging it down. So that applies there. What happens if we set opacity to 0? I assume I know what happens. It goes away. Okay. I kind of want to just have you sit on top where I don't have to. Normally, I would just put these on separate screens, but that doesn't work for you all who like to watch. So we're going to just do topmost. That way I can do it. Hey, Izzy, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. We are playing with visual brushes. I just wanted a quick demo app where I can play around with some ideas that I had in terms of trying to get a visual brush to render the way that I want. Because ultimately on our flipper, we're going to try to land this thing close to where we're going. Because at the end of the day, we kind of want to snapshot this thing and bring it out. Okay, so that doesn't get us quite where we want to. Really hoping I could abuse this a little bit. So, can we place the element? Because I'm trying to decide if there's a way for me to bring the element visible without making it visible, and have the. I want to make the visual brush behave in a way that it's not designed to behave. Because I want it to paint without painting. So if I come in here and do new, we'll just pick on rotate transform and do another 45 degrees. I think what that gets me is a rotation that's now 90 plus 45. Yeah. Which is not what I want, but it's not as far off as one might think. Not as far off as we might. Okay, so we can apply a transform to it. I probably don't want to change it. Now, in the material design library, was it freezing that brush or not? We'll make it a brush. Going through and setting that. Honestly, I'm a little curious real quick to just go try something on the plane 3D control. I wonder if we can fix part of the issue just with that change of the brush to set the stretch. If I do stretch, none. Do that, and then we come down the other visual brush. Where is it? Thought I saw a second one. Oh, this one, that's right. The old one cheats a little bit. I'm curious what this, just by setting stretch none on the old one, I'm curious if that somewhat addresses a little bit of the blurriness. I don't anticipate it actually taking care of the reacting to theme, but it a little bit of hope that there may be an alternate solution. So let's come down here. Still looks like crap. Still looks like crap. Be clear. be clear, unintended. This side is not clear. Okay, so the stretch doesn't actually get us around that, and that's not too shocking. Not too terribly shocking to me. Okay, so on our 3D new, let's see here. So we had both of these. Why did I have a second visual brush on this side? Right, because I was starting and ending with both and needed to build up a visual. So let's change these guys up to also have the same stretch behavior, because I think none is very clearly the obvious choice here. We aren't trying to do anything fancy, and given that we believe creating these every time, because the content was hidden on keyframe 0, so I had nothing to render. Yes, I believe that is a. We can confirm that, but I believe last time that's exactly what we saw. Is if we get rid of the visibility and have them both show up, we can get it to behave properly. Because if we come in here, I believe if we take Snoop, so I'm just going to take Snoop and directly manipulate this thing. All right, so we come in here and we're going to grab the. So that guy's not visible. We're going to change the visibility on this guy to visible. Oh, it's stupid storyboard is overriding me. But on each of these presenters, I believe that was a bit of the problem. The issue being, and this is what I was trying to see if we could solve, is figuring out how to grab a brush of an invisible item. Because that's kind of what I'm looking to do, is that kind of thing is adjusted accordingly. Now, here is my other theory of an idea I wanted to do. So if I scale transform this guy, right? So rather than rotation, just scale it, right? So if you do scale X to scale Y to, right? Twice as big, right? What happens if we do this? So I've now functionally hidden the guy. But I am wondering if I can grab him and then visual brush him and reverse the transform. So this is kind of what I was hoping to do here with this transform gets new scale transform, and I want to try something stupid, right? Of so if I have him tiny and I snapshot him and blow him up by the reverse, no, that doesn't quite work. I was kind of hoping that something like that could be a interesting. That thing doesn't do. Really? So that. Hold on, I'm confused. Why am I not getting anything out of it? I would have expected to, at minimum, get the. Okay. But if. Okay, so I get the small one. But why. Why does this not scale it up by a factor of 100? Or is a factor of 100 too big now? Is that the problem? Well, that was one of my other thoughts is just throw it all the way to the side and see what happens. I'm surprised I'm getting nothing though. Like I huh? The transform to apply to the brush. Default is the identity. Hey, Zalek, long time no see. We're doing battle with our old friend, the flipper control. I think I'm losing. It's very likely that I'm losing. It's wow, that's interesting that if I apply, I must not be understanding how this works. Because I would have assumed that the visual brush would render. Oh, hold up. What's this relative transform? Maybe I'm just using the wrong property. Hang on, hang on, hang on. Let's try that. Because I had assumed the visual brush would grab the element at its shrunk down size. Do people actually use the flipper? I suspect no, given the bugs that are with it. But I'm kind of hoping that I can change that if I make it not suck. Because I personally avoid using it in a lot of cases unless all I'm doing is like images or something. I don't like it for a lot of cases. Like it works fine if you're doing some sort of like just rendering pictures. For example, if you're doing a little card game, for example, fine for that. That works. Interesting. Okay, so let's. That is bizarre. Okay, so let's now I'm just confused. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, so this guy has changed, but we might want to. Exactly. That is interesting. So this thing at okay, so if I scale it up twofold, right? This guy here, and if we look at his background, he does have a visual brush. Um, if it works and looks better, I have 3 apps to use it on. Yeah, see that's the idea. Is I would like it to be functional. Width, height. So if I make the height double, like what is that, 260 something or another, a little bit, and the width, I don't know, 405, 410, something like that. Oh, clicking the button's gonna shrink it down. That didn't change. I'm curious how I'm getting. The fact that I'm getting this kind of rendering on this gives me both hope and fear that I don't know what I'm doing. Hope that my solution might be possible. Okay, so let's try this. Let's do a translate transform. Okay, that was the other possibility. So if we do like x equals minus 50, right? I think it stopped working a while ago. Yeah, it did. And honestly, I don't know if it's ever been in a great state because the underlying 3D stuff has been that way since I took over, and there's been some minor fixes and whatnot that have gone into it, but nothing major. The underlying structure of it has existed the way it has for a while. Okay, so we're going to take this off. We're going to relaunch. And grab this guy. Oh. That's that's very interesting. That is very interesting. So, if I render transform it into the middle of La La Land, I might just be able to capture it. And here's the thing. With the new structure, this visual brush is only visible during the animation. Once the animation completes, the visual brush goes away, and the actual, WPF control with all of its native rendering is going to be in its place. So this doesn't need to look perfect. It just needs to be close enough to fool the eye while the thing's in the middle of an animation. So it can be a little off and be okay, because I'm noticing there's some subtle differences here along the drop shadow effect. But okay. I'm liking where this is going. So I heard negative La La Land, which in my case, La La Land is negative 10,000. So nowhere. Clearly won't be rendered. Actually, you know what? Let's just make absolutely certain. There. That should be far enough that even with my 3 monitors, no, only 2 to the left, that's nowhere close to rendering area. Oh. Okay. Okay. So, theory. We could. Okay. So let me. I'm gonna talk this through, and then your job is to talk me out of a crazy idea. Okay. Crazy idea. So here's our new one. Nope. This is our old one. Still the old one. This is the new one. Okay. So if we look at the new one, the big difference with the new one is we've actually got 2 cards, front and back content, and this is how we get the better rendering, is they are not contained within the plane 3D, they are siblings of the plane 3D, right? So when you click, the plane 3D becomes visible, does the animation, it disappears, leaves the actual card in place behind it, poof. As long as the rendered visual brush is pretty close, the user might see a slight jump, but that is by far better than what we've got today, in my opinion. A small potential glitch, and I think we can get it down to where it's imperceptible. Okay, so when the flip occurs, I'm thinking we take part front content, part back content, apply a layout, no, not a layout transform, a render transform. That's of type translate transform. We set it to Ye Off in La La Land. So it goes for a hike. And then we grab the visual brush on that. So we can make the control visible. Let me think that through. We make the control visible. And then we capture this. And once we capture it, then we should be good. Yeah, because I think that's what we saw before, is before we weren't able to capture it because it wasn't visible, and therefore wasn't working properly. I think that makes sense. Let's change this up a little bit, because we had this guy here, starting, ending content, blah 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 blah. Okay. Collapse up some of these here. So unflipped to flipped. This is the starting direction. So before, this was dealing with toggling the visibility of the 3D plane. This is toggling the visibility here. I'm wondering, do we have any guidelines from Google on this control? That's a good question. I don't know if we do. This is one that is... This is one that is kind of different. And I think it was probably brought in a little bit of feature envy of some other material design libraries, because a lot of the controls aren't real specific. I think it would probably be in cards. Or is it under motion? probably under motion. Yeah, because they care more about their easing functions than anything. And I think what happened is this was I think this control came about by trying to implement one of these things here. Screen, forward, back. Because I don't think flipper is an actual control. I think flipper was an implementation of wanting to acquire something. Exit. Short version, I think the answer is no. Like I said, this thing has existed since long before I've been on, but I have seen other material design libraries implement similar type of animations. Now, they may not have specific controls for it, but having that kind of concept, I've seen used before. Okay, so we would like to take so this guy here. We don't want to go to no, this is fine because this is going from front to back. The difference is we would like this thing to be applied visibly at time 0, but we would also like to apply, and I think what we do here is we just preemptively set the transform, because you can give these guys names ahead of time. So card, and we're going to do render. Oh, if I can remember my XAML. Render transform. We're going to do render transform. I guess we don't really need to set an origin for this. Doesn't really matter. Let's see. Translate transform. And you'll see people oftentimes do a transform group and all of that stuff. I don't. That's overkill. Okay, so, and then we can either reference it by going through this property or we can reference it by name. I think I'm just going to give it a name. That seems much easier. Because you can technically go grab the part front content, grab its render transform, cast the value in render transform to translate transform, blah, 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 blah. That's, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to do here, front content transform. And then we're going to come down here to back content transform. Okay, so then up here, what we would like to do is we would like to come over here and say back content is becoming visible immediately, but back content transform, and it's, what is it? Translate X is what it's called. The X. Oh, no, it's just X. Okay. So we're going to do, may do X and Y long term, but for now we're just going to do X to make my life not thinking hard. And we so at key time 0, we're going to set this to negative La La Land. Yeah, negative 1 million. I say that should be good enough, and then people are going to invent screens and have monitors at coordinate resolutions that are insane. But I guess it really doesn't matter. As long as the coordinates are big enough to get me outside the bounds of the window, who's going to have... Because usually when you run into window bounds problems, it's because the window's maximized. That would require a monitor with a resolution of 1 million pixels. This thing to be all the way on the... Yeah, it's not possible. We're going to say not possible. Okay, and then we're going to go here, and at key time 4, he's going to magically, whoop, just jump right to 0. So he's going to go from middle of nowhere to back, on site, no thinking. Okay. This guy doesn't need to move anywhere. I don't think. He might. He might actually. So let's leave him. Let's leave him as he exists. We're going to get rid of the hidden. But let's bring in one of these guys here for him as well. Let's just separate these up so I can keep track of what I'm doing. So this is going to be the front content transform. And so he is going to immediately jump to -1 million as well, because I don't need him around. I just want him gone as well, because the plane 3D is the one that's like, the whole point is he's the one becoming visible to take over. So sending both of them to La La Land sounds great. And then at the end of the animation, he can come back to 0, but he's going to come back collapsed. So it's whatever. Okay. Now I think we replicate this behavior down below on the other flip direction. Here. So we're going to collapse these because I don't want to think about these too much. Okay, so we're going to do this one. So this is the guy that we need to invert, right? So he's going to go here. Once again, during the animation, both the content gets sent to La La Land area. And then I think the translate, the animations, this gets easy, right? Because we don't hide or collapse either of the controls during the animation, like what we were doing before, where we're doing hidden or collapsed. Instead, we translate them out of here. Yeah, let's try it. What could go wrong? What could go wrong? What could go? Okay. We do this. That's not a good sign. What is it doing? Cannot animate. Oh, because it's an object animation. Okay. Whoo! Whoo! Okay. I was a little confused there for a second. Okay, hold on. It's because I'm an idiot. Don't worry. The X property is a double, not an object. So we want double animation using frames. And I don't remember what the. Yeah, it's very picky about these things. Is it the double keyframes? Move window origin. Yeah. See, I mean, we joke, but I may actually declare a constant so that that -1 million can have a name. Actually, just yesterday I was doing a code review for a colleague, and a sizable percentage of the comments that I left on the PR was, "Hey, can we give these magical values some names?" Because there is like, and I left a comment on there. I'm like, I don't care if it's a code comment or if we declare a constant and give it a name. I was like, at the end of the day, when I'm reading this code and I see a magical number sitting there, I'd like to have some idea of like where it came from at something. Which it wasn't like it was a big discussion. I did the code review and it was like, oh yeah, definitely, of course. Like that was just kind of an oversight while I was doing it. Okay, I cannot find the right type. Double keyframe collection. Oh, it's just double keyframe. Okay. And then, oh, actually, we can just do. I have a feeling that will just work. What are you squawking about? Not be added. Double keyframe collection does not accept values of keyframes. Gonna disagree with that one. Pretty vehemently, in fact. Pretty confident here that this thing takes double keyframe. Okay. Yeah, I'm feeling dumb and I'm feeling lazy. Let's call it la la land X and make it int min. That's actually not a bad idea. That should be far enough outside the range of what's reasonably possible. Like, it's one of those, if anybody actually gets to there, like, I don't know what they are expecting. Oh, got it. It's because double keyframe is an abstract base. Got it. Okay, so don't be an idiot. We'll just do discrete because that's all we care about. Right? Okay, so this guy comes here, and we're going to do this, and then this guy comes, let's see, here, here. Okay, and the one above as well. Actually, we're just going to go bing, 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 then that out of here. Let's see. Double animation, that one. Comes there. Okay. A lot of work for something very simple. Okay. Moment of truth. Yes! Yes! Okay, that didn't work. That's okay. One of them worked. I probably have something backwards. That's okay. That means it's possible. Oh, yeah, I do have something backwards because I can see during the animation it's doing something weird. Doing something very weird. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Oh, I am so happy right now. So happy. Booyah! That means this flipper control doesn't have to suck. So happy. Okay, screen to GIF. If people haven't seen this tool, like, okay, so pro tip. Let's see here. Winget search screen to GIF. Hang on. If like this is an awesome tool. It's out there. Hang on. I think it's not 2. I think it's 2. Yeah, this guy here. So if anybody wants it, it is winget install that magical ID. You're off to the races. And also, the developer who builds this, if you love it, go support him. Like, he's awesome. This is a wonderful tool. Okay, so we're gonna debug this by just screen recording this. We're gonna see how this works. And we're gonna go whoop, whoop, stop. Okay, and then we're gonna grab the little editor, and I want to just look at what happens here when I do this. Okay, so there's the click. Okay, there's the click, and sometime between there and there, both controls go to La La Land. And we will note that something's a little off in that our content here appears to be, we've got a size jump here that's going on that I'm not sure I like. And I suspect the size jump is related to the flipper control itself is increasing in size to account for the bigger control that's coming. So I think what's happening is as soon as we make that this green edit thing um, visible, it's increasing the size of our flipper, bloating the size of this. And I think what we may want to do, I think we want to change the timing of this so that he doesn't become visible until halfway through, if we can help it. If we can help it. Because it'd be nice if right as that animation gets vertical, if that's when we do the split. Let me try that. Okay, so there's that. And you know, this thing's just snapshotting, so it's not a like if we play this guy back, like you can tell this is not a it's definitely dropping frames. Like this is not a it's not a clean animation, but good enough for debugging purposes because it shows me exactly what's going on. Okay, so that shows there, and then I'm also noting on the back side of this flip, I'm now once again seeing this resize. So something's off there because I should be seeing the other control at this point. We want it to change to that one. So that's wrong, and then we get to there. So something's backwards, and then we have this guy here, and then when we click, so as soon as we click, boom, and then gone, and then everything, and then we're back to the beginning. Okay, so something's backwards. Something's backwards. First of all, a working save point. Working idea. I realize my big fat head's in the way. I'll move this over there. People can see this. Right? A working idea. So we're gonna commit that real quick. Just so that it's there. We've got a working idea. Now, gotta figure out how to fix it. Okay, so let's bring okay, so this is the unflip to flip. So this should be the first animation. Okay, and I think we're happy with when the plane 3D comes visible. I don't think I care about this as much. Yeah, we had tried to do this binding thing for it last time, and that has proved to not be overly relevant. So I think we ignore that for the moment. We do have visibility being set, and then the rotation as it animates through. Because we have to do the 90-90 flip, which is fine. Like it occurs so fast, nobody sees it. Okay, now down here, the back content, so the disappearing and coming back, this much works great. I'm wondering what happens if I make this a 2. I'm wondering if this works. Because I'm partially scared that I'm gonna get bit halfway through the animation because it's cached something. So there's that. That part mildly concerns me, but we'll see how that goes. This one doesn't really matter, but I think we can do this. And I'm curious what happens here because we have now because I think we might have something backwards in our 3D code as well because and this is starting and I think we need to not call this starting and ending. We need to call this unflipped and flipped. Probably do a rename here. See how that goes. We should probably rename those to flipped and unflipped. Though I realize the plane 3D is whatever. It's technically the fact that this is being used as a flipper. This thing is kind of an arbitrary animational plane that, like, inside of your app today, you can actually leverage the plane 3D control, slap your own controls inside of it, and start applying these properties. The fact that we're using it for a flipper is kind of arbitrary. So I don't know what you call this, and maybe that's part of the issue. Maybe that's part of the issue. You swap them at any point. We don't, and I'm wondering if maybe that's what I've done wrong in all of this stuff, because I poached this plane 3D thing. So the old one worked around the idea of you would set the children of the plane 3D, and once you set the child in XAML, it would go through and remove the child from the visual tree, do all this brush stuff, kind of fake it being there with adding visual children and doing measurements and all of that stuff. So it was doing wacky stuff. But all of that was basically working um, because of this, right? Because Plane 3D was a parent of these two content controls. So the actual swapping between the content controls was occurring by showing and hiding these content presenters, and then relying on the visual brush um, to update accordingly. The problem is this whole grid is now put inside of a visual brush. Is functionally why we have issues with the rendering text looking like garbage, and why it doesn't respond to theming changes. Which is why I didn't want to put them inside of it. I want these things to be siblings, and I want to feed a reference to them in so that we can visual brush them in. Unflipped and flipped should use opposite controls. Agreed. Agreed. But that's where I'm thinking. I'm wondering if this thing actually needs both, or if a much better API is for this thing to just have a single control and us swap out what it's the like. I'm wondering if, rather than two properties, if what this thing really should just be is um like plain content. Because really what this guy does is he has a 3D axis. It's similar to how Snoop is able to um, do this maneuver. Right? Because Snoop has, I go 3D. Snoop has the window as a single element on its 3D plane that you can then rotate around and look at. And I'm wondering if that's really what we should do. Is we should have the plane 3D control exist, but have it only take in a single element. Because right now it's starting to be hard coded to the flipper, and I'd like to think about it. Other ones, private framework content for currently visible one. Um, the current one I don't think is private. I assume that's what you're referring to. The current plane 3D. It's currently public in the library. It's difficult to use, and I don't anticipate people actually using it. It's largely been there to support it, and it's based upon the best technology that 2007 had to offer. But I am proposing scrapping it in favor of this new one. But I'm thinking that this guy shouldn't have starting and ending content. He should just have content. And I'm thinking that's probably better. Is let him have both things and then rotate around them. I think that's probably better, because we don't need any of this stuff anymore. That makes this a whole heck of a lot easier, because now we get down to this idea of I don't need to do a lot of this, because I only need this one bit. Okay, so let's try that. Let's try functionally axing ending content. I think we're going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of this. Means this doesn't need to exist. This doesn't need to exist. This doesn't need to exist. Means consisting of the backside and 2 lights. I don't think we need this anymore. And then I think don't need that. I think this is all we need. I'm not even confident we need that anymore. We do need that still. Okay. And then, as a test, what we are going to do is we are going to unregister this, and we are going to swap out the starting content property halfway through the animation. Yeah, I think I like this mildly better. So this is going to be basically this. That. I don't know why Visual Studio isn't updating. Figure it out, Visual Studio. But we want to go here. So actually at 0, we would like starting content to be set to the front. At 2, we would like to change it to ending content or back content. And then at 4, we can go to null again. That's perfectly fine. We want this, and then we want to do the opposite order on the other, going the other direction. On the other direction, we basically want to do this and make this a 0 and this a 2. And then I want to check what triggers when we do this guy's property change. I want to make sure calling update rotation. Validate measure. I don't know when this is going to get re-invoked. We're going to, I don't know how often this is going to fire. Oh, it does fire on starting content property change. So it should fire for each change. Okay, we might be okay. Might be okay. Okay, so test. Immediate crash. Excellent. I was worried this would be easy. The update 3D. This is a check. Starting content is content. I think we're going to rename that thing down anyway. That'll do the bounds. I think this is going to get closer. I think we're going to be very, very close here. So that didn't quite do what I expected. At least in terms of rendering this properly, because now we're in a worse state than we were before. I am thinking that I would like to test this control a little bit more in isolation. So let's do this. Let's spend a mild amount of time giving us a better test layout. I think that's what I want to do. Give myself a test page to play in. That's a little bit nicer area. Okay, so JC, morning. How we doing? We are once again making progress on our flippy floppy control, and it is working. We have a solution that we at least somewhat got it. Puzzled by me or puzzled by something else? Let's see. 3D test. I don't know what to call it, and right now I'm too lazy to think of a good name. And then I just want to add it into my list of pages. Would here generate demo items. Yeah. Web browser in a draw host is showing when hidden. Ah. Which are you using, the built-in WPF web browser, or is this like WebView 2? I don't know if it's going to matter, but you are likely bumping into the WPF airspace issue. Okay, so the WPF one. So there is a fundamental problem with controls that have their own window host. And so what is likely occurring, so inside the drawer host there's the animation bits, but it does, I believe, or I put my foot all the way in my mouth. If only I knew where to find the animation control for this. Drawer. I'll have it in generic. Might have it just sitting in generic. Default. Where is it? Drawer host. Let's see. There's Ripple. Line. All direction indicator. Color zone. Drawer host. It does that. Does that do this? That. Opacity. Oh, it could be the opacity going to 0. So inside of WPF, there's a handful of things that are optimized to not render controls. Visibility, opacity, and I think the size going to 0 are some of the common cases where a control won't, the rendering won't spend any time rendering it. The problem being is the web browser control, and oftentimes people will get this with, it used to be a bigger problem with like DirectX controls when people would put them directly in WPF, is they don't participate in the WPF rendering, and so they are rendered on top of all of your XAML, which is what people will affectionately refer to as the airspace issue. Functionally, they write on top, i.e. the airspace above it. There is a handful of, yeah, so you'll see yeah, this guy here is basically the exact problems. And it's not limited to just browser. It's a common issue. So I suspect inside of the drawer host, what you are probably seeing is it showing up for 0.56 seconds, give or take a little bit. So when you say just for a second, I'm going to go with just a little more than half a second would be my working theory, that you see it show up, but then once the opacity gets all the way to 0 for being hidden or shown, yeah, 0.56 seems right. I'm willing to bet that's what's happening, is during the animation, there's not a way, because it's not participating in the rendering engine. WPF is only considering, do I render this thing at all or not? And so during the animation, it's visible right up until it goes through. What you may want to do is delay, show, or hide it, assuming it's possible. So there are a couple common workarounds for the airspace that I've seen people do. One is not actually too uncommon of this visual brush trick, is if you can tie into the appropriate events in your UI to know when to show and hide it, at the point you want to render something on top of it, you visual brush it, then render the thing on top, and then when the thing goes away, you bring it back and basically swap it in and out, which is, it's not great, right? And it becomes really obvious if your web browser is showing something that's like animated or similar, because it's really bloody obvious once you've snapshot it that that's what's going on. But the drawer host does have events that you can tie into for knowing when drawers are opening and closing. So that may be something you could do in terms of being able to show or hide it. But it is kind of obnoxious. The other thing that you'll see pop up a lot that people will reference with airspace is Dwayne Need. It might be it. Yeah. This is mitigating it at an advanced level. Let's put it this way. This is actually not too far unlike the dirty trick that we're doing with the visual brush of sending the thing to La La Land. But this is functionally taking the window, moving it off screen, and then forwarding the rendering back onto a WPF layer so that it participates properly. Yeah, and abusing the layered window. So if you want to do all of this, I will warn you, I have used this on apps in the past. If CPU and performance are at all a limiting factor for you, use this sparingly because it does put a little bit extra load on your rendering. And I think he calls that out in some of his render thread considerations. So don't just blindly slap this thing in everywhere. It should be used intentionally, like most things. But I think those are the common ways I've seen people do it. The other way I've seen people do it is design around it. Like I was building an app where I needed to pop the web browser. And the other thing, hang on, I'm gonna show one more thing while I'm here. You will probably run into issues with the rendering of some stuff with the built-in control. Like it's not bad and it gets better depending on which version of Windows you're deployed onto. If you can, WebView 2 is a much nicer browser control to play with. It doesn't come with any of the old IE garbage stuff along with it. That you can sometimes pick up in WPF apps, especially if you're targeting like framework or whatnot. This is a much more modern browser control. So if you are able to, and it is reasonable, install a preview channel of Microsoft Edge. Step 2 cannot be a requirement because I'm using it in an app and I do not have this. I think the key part here is the minimum required version of Edge. I think we are well past this. Where is my about? Help. That's not useful. I want to see what version I'm on. I think we are well past this about Microsoft. Yeah, so I am currently on version 120 blah blah blah. So the key thing here is in order to leverage it, you have to be on a version of Edge that is this or greater. Which I think is going to, most people, if they are at all updating their Windows, like this may have been an issue several years ago when this came out. I imagine it's going to be real hard to find a user that has too old of a version here. So, but again, doesn't solve the airspace issue, but it does give you a nicer browser. So you get a web interaction that doesn't suck. So yeah, no problem. Glad to try to shed light on confusion. Let's see. So we were building this guy real quick. So we're gonna call it. That's not how you spell 3D. 3D test. I don't care about any of this stuff. Honestly, I don't care about any of this. Let's see. What exactly are you looking for? I just want array.empty, don't I? Documentation length we're after. So we're just going to go with array.empty. And for those people who may not be aware, there's a reason to do array.empty over something like new documentation links 0. Right? This version here is always allocating an array. Array.empty does not. So mildly more efficient. Some people care a lot about their efficiency. So if you love your efficiency, do this. Okay, so palette selector, and then this becomes 3D. I call it 3D test. Am I not getting help? Idiot. Oh. See, I am an idiot. You know what? I'm too big of an idiot to try to solve it right now. So you know what? That's going to work. Pro tip, don't name your classes with a number or leading with a number. That's a bad idea. Okay. That gives me that. Get that gives me that. Great. Now, I would like to take and do a little bit of magic and put in one of these controls into here. So we're going to do something like grid, column definitions, column definition. Okay, Copilot, that is the only hints I'm giving you. What do I do next? You are nowhere even remotely close. That is clever. You're doing an entire 3D viewport. Wow, that is shockingly cool to do an entire 3D viewport just to show off Hello World. Nice thought. No, you're wrong. Okay. Sorry, sometimes I have to assert dominance over the AI, despite the fact that it has no feelings, and remind it that I am still the developer and it will be subservient to me. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to do this, and leverage that, and then this guy, let's see, do we put the preview on the left and the controls on the right? Yeah, sure, fine. We'll do that. And we're going to turn visibility on because that would be dumb to turn it off. And then on the right, we're going to do, I don't know, stack panel sounds great. Grid, column 1. Right, and we'll just do vertical alignment center, and we're just going to load some stuff up. So I am looking for a slider, I guess. Minimum is going to be, I think, 0. And no, minimum I want to be -90. Maximum I want to be 90, because that's kind of, again, I want to play with being able to move this thing around. And I would like to bind its current value. Binding to element name, part plane 3D, And we are going to do rotation Y. Actually, we should probably do this in the opposite direction. Probably better to go here. And then do X name. Whenever you spell rotation with an R. Last I checked, rotation starts with an R. Then we're going to bind this guy to value. Okay. Yeah, I think that's better. And then I bind two-way by default. I don't know if it matters. Because we're really only going to be, as this guy changes, going back and forth. Okay, and then we need to give this guy a thingy play with for his content. Let's grab, just for fun, go to that flipper. It's on the cards page. We're just going to grab the same control. Flipper new. I just want to grab this little bit of content. Yeah. We're going to grab this, bring this over, and we are going to do a stack panel here. We are going to move this down. We're going to paste this here. So we're going to have the real content here alongside the I should probably rename this to material design rather than WPF to make it match the rest of the demo app. Then it's only a rename in one place. Okay, so this is going to go here. Let's see. We're going to do name flipper content. And this guy's starting content is going to be flipper content. And now we're just going to format that so I don't have to think too hard. Okay, so we will have this guy in two places, top and bottom. We will have a slider that lets us rotate his thing, and then we can play with this, see how it goes. Yeah. So let's change our startup thing to be, rather than cards, we'll do 3D test. Go. Just to save a mild amount of time when we're launching the app. That way we can start to play around with just the plain 3D control outside of the flipper and get it working properly. Apparently that did not work. Okay, so that did not do what I expected. Most notably, it did not render anything. So let's just see. I assume this is the real one, and the other one is lost to the wind. Flipper content there. There is the plain 3D. It has a height of 0 and a width of 51. That's a great start. Being completely and utterly useless. So awesome. The content is appropriately bound. Okay. I start, then is rotation Y changing as I drag this? Like it should be doing what I want. Okay, what if I messed up in my setup here? Okay, rotation Y, starting content, Z factor, that's all good. Let's try something like height 56. About width 2. greatly concerns me that this guy didn't get immediately booted down, considering they're inside of a stack panel. We're going to relaunch. Oh, 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 oh. I accidentally clicked on the email button and it copied my mail client. That is not what we want. Okay. Okay, so that's better. Okay. I mean, yes, and at the same time, very much no. But I am noticing that this thing here was anticipating being inside of a card, and it's no longer inside of a card. So let's do that real quick. The previous one was anticipating being wrapped in a card inside of the flipper, and now this one is no longer. Some of this rendering looking weird is because of that. We'll move the flipper content up to the card. That will, and then we'll just format all that stuff because I'm too lazy to think. And let's relaunch. And I'm curious why I lost color. Like that, usually that's an indication of a brush not being found. That's, and this is kind of like, this is kind of giving me what I'm looking for, right? Is I want it to go woo, boom, right? Because secretly what's happening is we go this way, we jump over to here, and then we go woo, boom. That way it looks like a full flip. But secretly, it's not a full flip. Half flip done twice. Okay, so let's fix this guy here. Horizontal alignment center. Okay. I'm increasingly not trusting hot reload. Let's see here. Card. Make sure that, yeah, horizontal alignment center. That's going to get us to where we want. That did properly update, but it's not finding the brushes and it's not sized properly. Something is very, very wrong here. If I take this away, I assume it's just going to size to 0 again and we're going to lose it. At least I assume that's what's going to happen. Yeah, it's sized to 0 and we lose it. That's not helpful. Let's invert the order of these guys, first of all. And then we're going to move you down to here. Probably not helping anything that a stack panel wants to collapse its content down as small as possible. I am going to just do this. Width is going to be binding to element name. Probably not call this flipper content. Call it 3D content. Oh, we can't. Flipper content sounds great. And I want this to be actual width. This way I don't have to think too hard. I could keep hard coding things, or I could just write a binding. Done with it. Okay, so that, I think that will make a difference because now this guy is going to size format. He's now going to size appropriately for me. There, so he has appropriately sized, but he also appears to be completely black, which I have to take as a indication that, so you know what? Let's do this. Orientation horizontal. Yeah, I'm increasingly not trusting. I'm thinking the edit and continue is all kinds of messed up. When my class is named with a 3 at the beginning, so I should clearly change it. Maybe we'll call it like plain 3D test or something. Okay, so this is not finding the brushes for animating, right? That's what we are thinking is wrong. Or we've completely broken it based on the other changes that we made. Because the other changes that we made here were in the plain 3D new. We tried to whack off all of this ending content stuff too. And it's very plausible that in doing this group, we have broken something important. So let's put this back until we have it working. Let's see. Let's just, I don't know, a discard selection. I think I still only want the if for starting content because I'm not going to set the ending content. The ending content is going to be null. So we're going to have to deal with that. But I think we just deal with it here. We just do this. There. Let's try that and see if let's see if this gives us a better experience. Because I think this might be a little bit nicer. U across. Let's see. Aha! Okay. So, pro tip, when you delete stuff, don't assume it's meaningless. Let's see. I like the horizontalness a little bit better of this, but that means I need to change this from horizontal to vertical. And we're gonna put in a separator here, and I intentionally want to do rectangle margin of, I don't know, let's do 50. 0. So I'm intentionally not putting margin on either of these controls because we're rendering these things with visual brushes. I want to eliminate any possibility of margins or similar things on the control themselves affecting this and giving me reason to waste time chasing my tail just because there was a margin somewhere. I'm just going to put a blank control between them as a poor man's margin. Okay, so we clearly have some amount of rendering problems here, but got it. And because of the lights, you can see those lights in the 3D scene. The one of them's basically on my head looking straight down. So as this thing turns to the right, you can see how it kind of starts shadowing, fading out, and then from here, that gets me to there. So then if that's now working without leveraging the ending content, how close is our flippy control? Not. So it's not changing. At least it's not doing what I expect it to be doing. Okay. But the nice part, though, is this is now more or less working. There is something interesting to be said because it definitely looks like, yeah, we're once again getting into that fun sizing problem. Something's off with the way it sizes these. Very weird. Like, I wonder how much of this blur would go away if whatever was scaling this would knock it off. We did already turn off the brushes stretch, right? Yeah, brushes are already stretched off. It could be something weird going on here with these. That binding height property. And there could be something going on there, but I kind of doubt it. Kind of doubt it. There is a scale and a rotate transform being applied here. Where does the scale transform get values from? Right there. I wonder on the starting point if this is relaunch. If the starting width and height, if these aren't coming out at 1. I wonder if that's part of it. Width, height. So there are logical things. But it's interesting because width is being set to 200. Height is being set to 256, but I don't think that's the rendered height, is it? Get descendant bounds for sizing and centering since desired size includes layout white space, whereas get descendant bounds is tighter. I believe that, but I'm also wondering if it's not desirable here. Let's see. Get the blah, blah. And then the rotate transform has no rotation actually applied. Well, I guess that depends on this. New. So what is the size here? Because this thing is clearly set to render at. If we look at this guy, the flipper content, 256 200. So that does seem to be correct. What is this guy at? 256 200. But you'll note the red is outside the bounds. Like it's like, or I should say, the red it is drawing outside the red bounds. Interesting. Because this rectangle should have a fill brush, right? And if we want to delve the fill brush, and we look at the fill property here, no, stretch. Stretch is set to none. Interesting. Okay, so something's a little up with the sizing. That doesn't matter to me at the moment. What matters to me is that we should be swapping this guy out with new children. And just to confirm, if I take, let's just do the La La Land test real quick. So if I take this guy and I give him a material design card, and we do a transform. Translate transform. X gets E out of there. Oh, render transform. He's going to disappear for a little bit. Is there some clip to bounds? That's a good question. I could probably turn on clip to bounds on the plane 3D. My fear would be is then it would cut it off. So yeah, so this guy's perfectly happy. We can try the clip to bounds on this guy real quick and just see what he does. I don't know how the 3D stuff deals with that. Let's see. Clip to bounds on. Yeah, so there's the problem with clip to bounds is you get this behavior. So can we clip? Yes, but we probably explicitly don't want to because we're trying to get into situations where it can do this. So we kind of want to let it do its thing. No. I'm kind of curious. I know I had played with it before. Just staring at this position is making me wonder how possible this is to do without the 3D stuff. It seems like there should be a means by which, given a flat rectangle and a regular matrix transform, that this would be doable. I don't know if I'm going to attack that now because you also lose like the lighting source and that kind of stuff that the 3D modeling stuff gives you. But I don't know how actually like lighting sources I don't think are that important for people who are just interested in this animation. Like that's functionally all we're looking to do is this animation. And I'm wondering if that would be achievable. Like it might be. Seems like it might be. So I may play around with that a little bit. Okay, let's get this checked in because this is better than where we were. And we're going to put this in place. Let's see. Adding demo page app to test the plane 3D. Need to figure out if we can swap the content mid flip. And I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes. That's going to get pushed. Okay, and I think that might leave me with a nice natural ending spot. For those people who weren't here at the beginning, there is a video. I'll have a sneak peek on the Get Kraken CLI that is going to be hitting my YouTube within the next 24 hours. So if you are a CLI person and want to augment your dev experience, the Get Kraken CLI is not a replacement for Git.exe at all. It is explicitly not that, but it is a augmentation for people who like to live in the terminal, who want to be able to do some cool stuff with it. So I've got a video, I think it's like 22 minutes long, something like that, kind of going through all of the various features and how to leverage it. And I didn't hit everything, but I hit what I think are some of the good highlights. So that will be coming out shortly. There may be something that I do related to cloud patches, but so far every time I've played with them, there's a reason they're still in preview. I'll put it that way. They're cool when they work. and it's not that hard for me to break them. It seems like a lot of my flows tend to not fall into the happy case. So, but if you are at all interested in that, watch YouTube channel. That will be dropping soon. With that, I just want to tell everybody Merry Christmas in case I don't see people next week. Like I said, I'm not currently planning on canceling my stream, but who knows? It's the holidays. Family stuff may come up. I may be burned out come Wednesday. You're welcome, Justin Bieber. But with that, Merry Christmas. As always, happy coding. I'll see you all next time.